On 5 News, Donald Trump hits back. He dismisses allegations made in a leaked dossier that Russian spies have material they could use to blackmail him, including activities with prostitutes.
I think it's a disgrace that information would be let out. I saw the information, I read the information outside of that meeting. It's all fake news, it's phony stuff. It didn't happen.
Also, the NHS crisis, as doctors, nurses and GPs demand the government does more. This cancer patient tells us he spent 13 hours on a trolley with a life-threatening clot on his lung.
The explanation I was given by the nurses was that we had to wait so long for a bed simply because they have problems discharging patients who don't need medical care but need social care.
A 15-year-old girl appears in court charged with the murder of 7-year-old Katie Ruff. High winds cause road closures and power cuts. Next comes the snow. And an emotional Barack Obama makes his final speech as president with a special mention for Michelle.
You have not only been my wife and mother of my children, you have been my best friend.
Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams. When it comes to US President-elect Donald Trump, there is no shortage of gossip and allegations. But things have stepped up a gear with the publication of an extraordinary dossier claiming Russia has information which could seriously compromise him. The unverified report includes claims his campaign team were in contact with Moscow and allegations involving prostitutes. Well, in a press conference, which is happening right now, Mr. Trump has described it as nonsense and said it should never have been written or released. Our chief correspondent, Tessa Chapman, reports.
Could this man's presidential journey get any more extraordinary? 9 days before taking office, Donald Trump responds to explosive claims involving bugged hotel rooms, Russian spies, and potential blackmail plots.
It's all fake news, it's phony stuff. It didn't happen. And it was gotten by opponents of ours, as you know, because you reported it and so did many of the other people. It was a group of opponents that got together, sick people, and they put that crap together.
He's talking about a dossier reportedly compiled by a former British spy. The CIA briefed President Obama and the president-elect on it last week. So even though the details aren't verified and might not be true, the news website BuzzFeed decided to publish. It claims the Russian regime's been supporting Trump for years, that their spies have collected material they could use to blackmail him, including allegations he used prostitutes for perverted sexual acts. Donald Trump has been to Russia. Here he is in Moscow in 2013 for the Miss Universe contest he owns. Today, Russia dismissed the idea of spying on him as complete fabrication. Trump was keen to make his position clear.
I have no dealings with Russia. I have no deals in Russia. I have no deals that could happen in Russia because we've stayed away.
But it all adds to the swirl of allegations about Russia's reach into US politics and who Trump trusts.
You have the president-elect pointing to the Kremlin as a credible source on that subject, whereas he's expressed skepticism for the findings of the U.S. intelligence community. So when you have now that contrast over the past week or two, it sends kind of a strange message.
A strange message from a unique president-elect. US politics is in an odd place. The one certainty is that this man will be president at the end of next week. Tessa Chapman, 5 News.
Let's go straight to Washington now and speak to NBC reporter Ron Allen, who joins us from there. I mean, extraordinary claims, Ron. Tell us how America is reacting to the allegations.
Well, first, let me tell you, our reporting about these claims backs what Mr. Trump is saying. Intelligence sources are telling us that this was opposition research that was done by some of Mr. Trump's opponents, that it's not been substantiated, and that it was not presented to him during the intelligence briefing about the Russian hacking. It was information that the intelligence briefers had if they wanted to show context, if they wanted to show him what was not substantiated versus what is substantiated to help make their point that they believe that Vladimir Putin orchestrated this covert hacking operation into the American election, which, by the way, Mr. Trump grudgingly said, I think Russia did it, but he still won't fully acknowledge that. Here in America, I think it's a very partisan place, as you know. People are going to believe what they want to believe. Some people will believe these allegations and some people will dismiss them. And this will probably simmer on because, again, there are people who have strong feelings about Donald Trump. They don't see him as fitting to be president, and some do. So I think this will just be grist for the mill. But the bottom line is that these allegations have been disproven. They're not accurate, they're not true, they haven't been substantiated, and Donald Trump dismisses them, and the intelligence community here in the United States is not vouching for this now.
Ron Allen, thanks for that. Here, the warnings about an unprecedented crisis in the NHS have intensified still further today, with fresh claims from health leaders that lives are at risk. But in the Commons this lunchtime, Theresa May would only admit to what she described as a small number of incidents of unacceptable practice. Our health correspondent, Catherine Jones, reports.
Nigel was rushed to A&E in Plymouth last month. He has cancer and had developed a life-threatening clot in his lung. There was no bed for him, so for 13 hours he was treated on a trolley.
The explanation I was given by the nurses was that we had to wait so long for a bed simply because they have problems discharging patients who don't need medical care but need social care. I don't blame the hospital, I don't blame Plymouth City Council, and I don't blame Devon County Council. The buck stops with the government for their cuts in social care funding.
Today, from all parts of the NHS and beyond, a chorus of alarm could be heard. From 75 health leaders and charities, a public warning millions will continue to be badly let down unless Theresa May acts. The Royal College of Nursing reporting its members are broken and distressed. The British Medical Association declaring plans for longer GP opening hours are in complete disarray. And the Royal College of Physicians cautioning that lives are being put at risk.
There is evidence that the longer patients spend being sorted out at what we call the front end of the hospital, the higher the mortality.
People will die.
People will die. People will also not be treated with the kind of respect and compassion that we've come to expect in the NHS.
Jeremy Corbyn asked the PM if she recognises the scale of the problem.
I accept there have been a small number of incidents where where unacceptable practices have taken place. But if the right honourable gentleman comes back to me and talks to me about funding again, he should think on this. We can only fund social care and we can only fund the NHS if we have a strong economy. We'll only have that with the Conservatives.
This was the Labour leader's verdict.
Our NHS, Mr. Speaker, is in crisis, but the Prime Minister is in denial.
The government says England has 3,000 more nurses and 1,600 more doctors than a year ago, and it is joining up health and social care to make the system work better. But today, the Prime Minister appeared to play down the pressure our hospitals are under, and that is unlikely to be popular. Catherine Jones, 5 News.
A 15-year-old girl has been remanded in secure accommodation after a court appearance this morning where she was charged with murdering a 7-year-old. Katie Ruff was found seriously injured in an area of York on Monday. She later died in hospital. Some of her family attended the hearing this morning. From York, Peter Lane reports.
An 8-minute court hearing at York Magistrates today, but it must have felt much longer for Katie Ruff's relatives, including her grandparents, listening to details of how she died and watching a 15-year-old girl be formally charged with her murder. Some of Katie's family stood up and leaned forward in the public gallery to look into the dock to see the teenager, who was flanked by 2 security guards. 7-year-old Katie Ruff was found with fatal knife wounds on Monday afternoon. She died later in hospital. Her family say they are devastated. Her school paid tribute to her, describing Katie as kind and thoughtful. Police work continued today at the footpath and field on the outskirts of York where Katie was found. Officers using metal detectors and search sticks to work over this ground again. The 15-year-old girl who's charged with the murder here is also charged with possession of an offensive weapon. She didn't speak in court. Instead, her solicitor confirmed her identity, which we can't report because of her age, and confirmed that she understood the charges. There are more flowers and farewell messages here now for Katie Rough, from family and friends, and from a community shocked and stunned by what happened. The girl accused of murdering Katie will appear at Leeds Crown Court on Friday. Peter Lane, 5 News.
Power cuts and travel chaos have hit parts of northern England and Scotland, which are being battered by strong winds. In Newcastle, part of the city centre was closed off, and the Forth Road Bridge has been closed after a lorry was blown over. But the worst could still be to come, because the Met Office has issued several severe weather warnings for wind and snow. Danny Sinha has more.
The Forth Road Bridge, which takes people from Edinburgh to Fife, was a no-go area today after a lorry overturned. It was blown from the northbound carriageway onto the southbound side, blocking access all day. Police say a 54-year-old man was charged over the incident. Repairs have been taking place, but strong winds have hampered recovery efforts. Gale force winds shifted an entire horse stable into the middle of the road in Blaydon upon Tyne near Gateshead. And in the same area, this trampoline was propelled into a pub. In Newcastle city centre, the wind tore down the roof of a department store. Luckily, no one was injured. Satellite pictures show the cold front moving in. The bad weather has already cut power supplies in the northeast and Yorkshire. A taste of worse to come.
Over the next few days, we remain in a wintry grip. That means through tomorrow, further snow showers across Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England and North Wales. We've also got a batch of rain moving in across more southern areas, and it could actually turn to snow on its northern edge. That will affect the Welsh Mountains, Hampshire towards the Midlands, as well as East Anglia before the rain clears towards the southeast. So again, the risk of some snow here.
From tomorrow, the whole of the UK will get its real taste of winter, bringing hazardous conditions to much of the country. Danny Sinha, 5 News.
And Claire Nazir, who you saw there, is going to be back with a full weather forecast later in the show. Also coming up on 5 News. Rolf Harris goes on trial again, accused of further sexual assaults. Advice for parents on how to help their children brush their teeth properly. And
Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you.
bye-bye to Barack Obama as he gives his final speech as America's president. We'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome back. You're watching 5 News. Rolf Harris has appeared in court via video link on trial for a new set of alleged sex offences. The TV entertainer is already serving a prison sentence for indecently assaulting 4 women. There are 7 complainants in this new trial, with allegations dating between 1971 and 2004. Let's talk to Julian Drucker, who was at Southwark Crown Court. Julian, talk us through what happened today.
Sian, Rolf Harris is accused of a series of sexual assaults and acting in a way that the prosecution today described as brazen. Now, he was convicted and imprisoned 3 years ago after a separate trial. Now he faces claims from 7 women who were aged between 12 and 42 at the time. He is currently in Stafford Prison. He appeared in today's proceedings via video link. It's thought to be the first time in British legal history that a defendant has gone on trial in this way. Now, the prosecution outlined a claim from a woman who is blind and disabled. She says Rolf Harris attacked her at a hospital. Another woman who was 13 at the time says Rolf Harris assaulted her at BBC Television Centre. And we heard evidence from one woman who broke into tears as she said that Rolf Harris smirked as he apparently attacked her when she was 14 years old. Rolf Harris denies all of the claims and his trial will continue tomorrow.
Julian, thank you. Petrol prices have risen to their highest level in more than 2 years. A litre of petrol reached an average of £1.18 a litre on Monday. Diesel car drivers are also feeling the strain, with an average price per litre of £1.21, last seen in June 2015. Sainsbury's is celebrating record Christmas sales of more than £1 billion. The 0.1% rise during the third quarter of the financial year was ahead of the analysts' expectations. Now, having a tooth removed is unpleasant, whatever your age, but more and more children are having to go through it. And today it was revealed there's been a big rise in the number of children who've had more than one tooth removed in the same operation. Let's talk to Dominic Reynolds, who joins me now. Dominic, this sounds like a big problem. How big?
Well, it's this big. 160 children every day in England are going into hospital to have more than one tooth removed because it's rotten. It's a very big number. It's gone up 10% in 3 years, and it's expensive. It's costing the NHS £35 million every year. Now, it all sounds pretty incredible. I went to see a dentist earlier on today who told me that removing rotten teeth from kids' mouths is now basically routine.
My experience is that I see children every week with very severe tooth decay that can't be treated just with a normal filling, and they actually need to have the tooth taken out.
Every week?
Every week.
And why is it normally?
Frightening, actually. And this is caused by tooth decay, which in its turn caused by poor diet, a high sugar diet, and poor oral hygiene, so insufficient brushing.
The thing is, as we know, it is not always easy to get your children to brush their teeth properly. So what's the advice for parents?
OK, so there are three main things that parents can do. First, of course, make sure your children are brushing twice a day with fluoride toothpaste for 2 minutes. Also, supervise that brushing, maybe a bit longer than you might think, right up until the age of 7, to make sure they're doing that brushing properly. And of course, lastly, watch what they're eating. Not just as simple as cutting out sugar or keeping sugar to a particular day of the week, but also watching for hidden dangers to children's teeth, like pieces of fruit juice. The acid in that can erode their teeth. So unless you're having it at meal times, maybe not such a good idea. All of those tips and a few more on our Facebook page.
Good advice. Thanks, Dom. Now, we started the programme tonight talking about the rumours swirling around the US President-elect Donald Trump and his strong denial over those allegations about the compromising intelligence that Russia was said to have on him. Well, Mr. Trump's news conference was in sharp contrast to the farewell address given by the outgoing President Barack Obama. He has said goodbye to the nation in an emotional speech which was, at times, both forceful and tearful, where he spoke about democracy buckling if it gave way to fear. Simon Weiger was watching.
Back in the city where it all began, the crowd in Chicago chanted for the one thing they couldn't have: 4 more years.
I can't do that.
In his farewell speech, President Obama hailed his record on foreign and domestic policy.
If I had told you that we would win marriage equality and secure the right to health insurance for another 20 million of our fellow citizens, if I had told you all that, you might have said our sights were set a little too high.
He told supporters race relations have improved, but still have a long way to go.
You see it in the attitudes of young Americans across the political spectrum. But we're not where we need to be.
He didn't mention Donald Trump by name, but when talking about social media, immigration and climate change, he didn't have to.
And that science and reason matter, then we're going to keep talking past each other. And we'll make common ground and compromise impossible. I reject discrimination against Muslim Americans who are just as patriotic as we are. If you're tired of arguing with strangers on the internet, try talking with one of them in real life.
The most emotional moment came when he paid tribute to his daughters and his wife.
Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, girl of the South Side. For the past 25 years, you have not only been my wife and mother of my children, you have been my best friend.
He said he will continue to serve as a citizen and warned democracy is threatened when people give in to fear.
I am asking you to hold fast to that faith written into our founding documents, that creed reaffirmed by those who planted flags from foreign battlefields to the surface of the moon, a creed at the core of every American whose story is not yet written. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you. May God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Long after policy successes and failures are forgotten, Barack Obama's power as an orator will be remembered. Simon Weiger, 5 News.
Well, what an extraordinary 24 hours for the two presidents, I suppose. Matt has more on this on 5 News tonight. Hello there.
Yeah, that's right, Sean. We're going to have more on President Obama's legacy. I've been speaking to a former assistant to the outgoing president about what it was like working for him and what he thinks were his greatest achievements. Thinks he's going to be a cultural icon in years to come, if he's not already. And also, that warning on the state of some children's teeth is shocking. We'll hear from a leading dentist about why he thinks things are getting so bad and how you can look after your own children's teeth and your teeth too. And brace yourself to the winter is about to arrive properly for most of the country. We'll be looking at whether we're ready for the weather at 6:30.
Thank you, Matt. Look forward to that. That is it for now, though. Claire Nazir has all the weather for you next. I will see you again tomorrow at 5 and Matt, of course, back at 6:30. Thanks for watching tonight. Bye for now.